Through some of the capacitors out of the Marantz amplifier this evening just to check the ESRs. I mean, I wasn't going to keep them, but I thought I'd throw them away. But I was just interested to see how well they'd sort of fared up over 30 years or so. And I just connected up my little Chinese LCR meter, which is great because it's got ESR and it's really nice. They're really nice little items actually, and they're cheap. And they do the job really well, and you sort of auto lead identification, everything like that. And you saw a little review I did on it previously. But I switched it on and it said the battery was flat, so I'm thinking, okay, fair enough, I'll put a new battery in it. So when I whipped the cover off and the back of it, I thought, oh, this is a battery I replaced fairly recently. It's got a date of 2020, and it's only hardly ever gets used. I thought, oh, must be something wrong with the battery. So I put another rechargeable battery in it that I've just charged up. And I switched it on, and it came up with battery weak, 7.4 volts. I'm thinking, well, it might be a bit low, but it's not weak. So I thought, all right, I'll connect it up to the external power supply. And the external power supply is the Roban power supply, and turned it on, and this is what you get. So let's try it again, because when I tried it the first time, it did nothing. Anyway, I connected it back up to this little 470 microfarad capacitor out of the amplifier. Let's switch it on and see what happens now. Nothing. It just crashes. Now, what sort of current would you expect this to draw? 100 milliamps when it was testing? Maybe a little bit more? We'll have a look at this when I press the test button. So you look at the right hand meter, and you'll see how much current it draws. Switch it on. 600 milliamps. Really? That's a lot of current. And it fails. So I'm starting to think, well, it's obviously died. It shouldn't draw 600 milliamps, I would have thought. I'll increase the voltage slightly, but this is at 9.4, 9.5 volts according to the power supply. Let's try again. 8.8, it says it's okay, but it just crashes out again. So there's clearly something gone wrong with it. So I've whipped the cover off the back. The only thing I can possibly think of is it's that bloody tantalum's gone leaky or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that tantalum first, just to see what it does, and see if we can get a power up. If that doesn't work, I'll tack another tantalum, not tantalum, electrolytic in there, 47 mic at 16 volt. Put another one of those in there and see if that fixes it. But the only thing I can possibly think that's happened to it is being zapped by a charged capacitor. But as far as I'm aware, all the capacitors I've checked recently have been fully discharged, because I usually short them out with a screwdriver. So anyway, let's whip that capacitor out and see what we get. I pulled one side of that capacitor out. We'll try it again, see what it does. Same thing. Oh dear, it looks like my little Chinese LCR meter's actually finally died. It's only been used about a handful of times. It's a shame, because I don't know what VCC 4.8 volts means. I mean, that's holding the button down. So I don't know what's happened with that. It's clearly had it. The only thing I can do is quickly check that capacitor and see what it measures on the LCR. I'll just check the capacitance. It's measuring 47 UF, but it's measuring very low ESR, about 500 on the dissipation factor. So it's clearly a crappy capacitor. So what I'll do is I'll tack one of the old Marantz's capacitors across. It's amazing that the difference. That's a 47 at 50. That's a 47 at 16, but yeah, there's a slight difference in size. I'll just tack that across and see if we can this thing springs to life. A bit ironic of the capacitors it's testing and actually the capacitors it needs to make it work again. So let's try this capacitor across and see what it does. I'm just going to try and solder it back onto the pad. It looks like the pad's torn out. I mean, I don't think I did that when I unsoldered it, but if you see there, the pad looks damaged and it looks like there's no track there. So I don't know if I dropped the meter or something and the capacitor sort of ripped the track out. It could be possibly that it's got no capacitance, so it won't work without, it's sort of like a decoupling capacitor or something. So what I'm going to try and do is I'll try and work out where the track goes and make a link up. And I crudely bodged that capacitor in there just to prove if that will fix it, and if it will, I'll put a proper surface mount capacitor in there so it's powered up and took in and try it. No, it doesn't even try and check the component. That's what's weird. It should say no component detected if there's nothing there, but it's not even. It's almost like it's not running the routine. Cycle the power off a minute and just make sure it's not corrupted or something. Power off, back on again. Okay, let's give it some more volts. So it shuts straight away off at higher voltage. I wonder if it's got some sort of... Nope, it's not going to work. So it looks like the bloody thing's died. So I don't know what's happened with it, or maybe it did get zapped or something. But it's clearly not working anymore, which is a shame because this was a great little meter, but this one's not great anymore.